Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 316, recorded on Monday, September 23rd, 2024. This is a podcast all about Minecraft, available across all of your favorite podcasting platforms, including YouTube, where you can watch us on video. My name is Joel Duggan, and joining me always is my friend Johnny, aka Pixel Riffs, on the internet. Hello, sir.
Hello, we've been having a good old chat in the render distance. That's the extended version of the podcast, which you can get if you're a patron over at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. We've been talking about the change in fall weather, Joel's adventures in Satisfactory, my adventures in trying to organize my house and my life in the process. But once again, that's a free show that you get if you're part of our Patreon community. And speaking of Patreon, there are some changes coming to Patreon in a couple of months that are going to affect the ways that people can support the podcast. The Patreon app through the iOS App Store will no longer support per creation billing, which we currently use, from November of 2024. So from November, you won't be able to start a new pledge to the podcast's Patreon through the iOS app. Patreon is actually planning to remove per creation billing entirely by November 2025, leaving creators and patrons with monthly subscriptions as their only option. So in response to that, we're planning to switch the Spawn Chunks Patreon campaign to a monthly subscription model from January of 2025. So the start of next year, we're going to go to a monthly subscription instead of a pay-per-show subscription. On Saturday, we hosted an extra hangout for our existing patrons to discuss our early plans for how we're going to deal with these changes. If you're a patron, that hangout should now appear in the patrons-only RSS feed, and we encourage existing patrons to give us some feedback before we firm up those plans and move to make these changes more permanent. In the meantime, our monthly Minecraft hangout that we have with our patrons, where we go over what everyone else has been up to in Minecraft that month, is still happening at the usual time on Saturday, September 28th. That's 10 a.m. Atlantic time, 2 p.m. UK time. That's also going to be the same day as Minecraft Live, so shortly after, we're going to be co-streaming Minecraft Live as we have done in previous years. So we'll have more information about Minecraft Live in the news segment today, but keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, consider supporting us from the website version of Patreon over at patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
So what have you been doing to support your Minecraft habit this week?
This week, I have mostly been in Fantasy Minecraft SMP. I haven't been back to the Survival Guide yet. That's looking more like it's going to return in October after some of the news cycle kind of gets in gear with Minecraft Live and everything. But I am doing a bit more on the Necromantian over on Fantasy SMP. Unfortunately, this was delayed slightly by me deleting my entire skill tree. So there are a couple of ways the skill system in this mod pack works. There are, I think, a couple of mods overlapping, but there's a skill tree that you can use to improve individual stats by like a small amount each time, using like additional nodes of this skill tree to unlock more spell power, more attack power. You can even give yourself a little jump boost if you want to. And I had a necromancy skill tree as like my main class, my character class. Unfortunately, that had an ability on it that was giving me like debuffs. It was giving me harmful status effects every time I cast spells. And the intent behind that is that there's another ability that has synergy with it that lets your summoned minions take away those harmful status effects and then imbue them on enemies that you're attacking. But that assumes that the only time you're doing any spell casting is when you're in combat. Unfortunately for me, the axes and some of the tools I was using while building were also spellcasting tools. So when I was using a regular diamond axe, I would try and cast a spell when I was trying to like strip logs by right-clicking, and it would end up giving me things like blindness and poison and hunger as status effects, which is not ideal when you're trying to work on a house. So I decided I wanted to respec my skill tree, which is possible to do thanks to a couple of items as part of the mod, but down to a misunderstanding of how those items worked. The flavor text of one of them said it should refund skill points, but I also used another item before that to try and save my entire skill tree build to a different book, and that wiped my skill tree entirely. I went back and reapplied it thinking, oh sure, I'll just get all of my stuff back and I'll use the one that allows me to respec. And unfortunately, I think that deleted all of my skill points, but left the skill nodes unlocked. And then when I used the thing that's supposed to allow you to respec, it just wiped out all the skill nodes and left me with no skill points to spend again. So I basically had to rebuild my character from scratch at that point, because the skill tree unlocks abilities that I was using on a fairly regular basis, dealing with some of the more difficult challenges in the mod pack, boss fights and things like that. And so, fortunately, I found a way to game the system. I'd located a nether structure that was another thing that was added in for the mod, but is effectively kind of like a nether fortress. The only difference being there are a lot of spawners in there that specifically monster spawner blocks that spawn wither skeletons. And there were about 9 of them total, I think, in the structure, 5 of which I could activate from one space. So I was purely looking for building blocks when I found this, but I ended up turning it into a kind of makeshift with a skeleton farm. I'll go and take some screenshots. I don't have any to share in the live chat right now, but I'll take some screenshots after. It's not pretty. It's effectively like a room with 3 spawners in that is spawning with the skeletons. They all run towards me just based on line of sight. And there's a couple more in a lower structure that just have to run up some stairs to reach me. But that's easy enough for them to do. I funnel them all into a central area, and then there's a 3x3 of hoppers that's just funneling everything into a simple storage system. And that allows for mass gathering of XP, coal, bones with a skeleton skulls, plus a few extra drops that the mods throw in there for like augmented mobs that occasionally spawn with like extra abilities. So I get occasional like diamond tools come through as a result of that. The only minor setback was that the XP system that's native to vanilla Minecraft, where you're gathering levels for enchanting, worked slightly differently to the XP you acquire for the skill tree I was trying to rebuild. And through a bit of trial and error, I worked out that the only times it would add XP to your skill tree if you are killing the same mob over and over again was like it caps a certain amount of XP from that type of mob, and then it only starts to track more XP gathered after 5 minutes had elapsed. So basically, I could use the farm once every 5 minutes if I wanted to build up XP that goes towards my skill tree. And with a little bit of help from chat, I figured out that the best way of timing that was just to create a despawn timer where a dispenser spits an item out onto a pressure plate, and it waits for that item to disappear to deactivate the pressure plate. And that just switches on a couple of redstone lamps either side of the farm to let me know, hey, you can come back and use the farm again and you'll gain XP for the skill tree. And as soon as items start flowing through the hoppers underneath again, it spits another item onto the pressure plate, and that times out another 5 minutes. And so as a result, I've been gaming the system a little bit with a little bit of redstone assistance, trying to get back to where I was at before, and I think I'm probably about 2/3 of the way to my skill tree being as fully fleshed out as it was before, but without the one that was giving me harmful status effects, because that's the thing. The one thing I've done this all for is so that I don't get poisoned while I'm trying to build my house.
It's funny that you have the ability to reset your tree, but that it doesn't keep your points. Like in other games, when you reset your skill tree, those points all go back to you, and then you don't have to go gather them again. You can just respec. You know, it happens in World of Warcraft. I've seen it in, I think, maybe an Assassin's Creed game, or certainly other RPGs that I've played.
Yeah, like I said, I think that was purely down to me trying another system that let you store your build first, because I think that deleted any of the, like, progress you'd made towards the next level, and it just saved all of the nodes you had unlocked. And so I think it just deleted whatever my XP value was in the background, and then that was what would have been given back to me when I used the other item that allows you to respec normally. So I think it was honestly my mistake, and it was just
I see.
It was one of those things where, like, you know, you've accidentally done one thing and then you try the other thing, and it turns out the two of them together are what creates the disaster. So, you know, I think that's mostly my fault. But either way, I was happy that Minecraft was flexible enough to allow me a way around that, and I kind of put my technical brain to work a little bit and did a bit of trial and error. I had a stopwatch going on my phone to make sure that, like, 5 minutes was actually the margin by which I had to return to the farm and start killing with the skeletons again. And there were even a couple of magma cube spawners in the basement level that maybe I could have got more XP out of those if I'd kept those around and figured out a way to farm those. But farming 2 types of mobs in one farm is always a little bit difficult. So in the end, I'm pretty happy with how we put that stuff together, and maybe a little bit more farming this week will guarantee that I'm back to my previous progress level by the time we finish the next stream.
It's funny how the need to regain something lost or increase the items you want in a specific situation quickly result in some, we'll call it quick and dirty redstone, but ways that you can, like, exercise your redstone knowledge, do something that's functional, not have to worry about how it looks, and just, like, get her done. And either learn a new skill or realize, oh, okay, here's an implementation of redstone that I not, would have never thought to use had I not been playing this mod pack that would require me to respec. And I think it's pretty cool to have that kind of in-game timer, like keeping track of your progress and making sure you're getting the most of your time so you can get back to things quickly.
Yeah.
I've done some stuff like that before with redstone where it's just quick and dirty and it's meant to function. And I do find it very satisfying when I can walk away from like, I didn't have to look that up on the internet. Like I know that circuitry, or I know several solutions, and I wanted the solution that would be the quickest and the easiest to do right now on stream and just get it done. And it's nice when you realize that you have that knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you could do the same thing with something like a cow farm if you wanted to breed a bunch of cows, but you have that 5-minute cooldown between when you can breed them. Like, you could very easily set up a timer like this to just have an item despawn in the background. Obviously, the item has to stay loaded, so, like, there's some, I guess, conditions under which the timer has to run. Because otherwise it's just going to be stuck there for a while, and maybe you'd come back to the cows and they'd still be able to breed because 5 minutes of game time had elapsed. I'm not quite sure how that works, but I do think there are things like that isn't even necessarily a modded Minecraft thing. That's a circuit I could take back into vanilla and find a bunch of fun applications for. Like, you could even set up an item collection on a timer for, say, like a sweeping slime block flying machine for maybe like a bamboo field or something like that you only want to trigger it every 5 minutes. You just let an item despawn. I've seen people do that before, where they just chuck an item on the ground to see when 5 minutes has elapsed, and I just wanted to add a level of automation to that felt like it was helpful to me, signal me from a distance if I'm destroying the rest of the nether floating island that this structure has generated on, because my plan was to turn the farm into something that other people on the server could use, whether it's just for gathering the resources or also for farming XP. Now I have a system that also allows them to level up their skill tree and understand the relationship between the skill tree, the amount of mobs they're killing, and the timing of that. So I've learned a little bit about how the mods work, which makes me happy, because most of the time I'm all at sea when it comes to modded, and I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants and making it up as I go along.
Well, making up as we go along is kind of what I was doing on stream this weekend. I went and revisited my plans to retrofit the Moss Farm storage and how it's kind of jutting out of the mountain. And I followed through with my plans to tear out what I had done last week and add more depth and add a green roof, keep the shapes a lot more simple, and go back to something I mentioned on the show a lot, which is like that 70-30 rule of having like 70% of the build being shapes and easy on the eye, and then the other 30% being the detail. So I was able to bring in some copper bulbs to echo the shroom lights that are on the main farming redstone that's out in the lake, kind of echo those oranges. The foliage on the roof kind of drapes over the edge and kind of droops down, just like vines, and I'm using azalea bushes. Very similar to what is happening on the top of the iron farm, which we used to spawn-proof the iron farm, but also decorate it. And so it's kind of have a little bit of moss farm, a little bit of iron farm, because they're right next to each other, kind of happening on this green roof. I really do like the bulbs. I think they help kind of make it look like a facility. Like, it makes it look like there's something cool going on inside. And when you get up closer, you can see through the green glass, and you can see what's going on inside. Also, I didn't grab any screenshots of inside, but the moss roof is also visible from inside the redstone room. And when you look up, I've got glowberries hanging from the ceiling and bushes hanging from the ceiling, which do two things. It actually spawn proofs the room, but also provides this kind of like natural green cave-like foliage, which is very similar to the storage room downstairs. So it all kind of vibes together. I do still have some landscaping to do. I messed around a little bit trying to explain on stream what I was planning on doing. I didn't grab any stairs and slabs. It was just mossy blocks and mossy cobble blocks and tuff to go in and kind of like sort of work around what might happen at the base of it. And I've got a pretty good idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my best to kind of remove the squareness of the edge of the cliff and round it out a little bit. So that might involve some landscaping, and I might have to move the zombie, the backup zombie for the iron farm that I've got squirreled away in a minecart in the hillside. I might have to find a new home for him, just so I don't have to go hunt down another one in the event that we ever lose the one that's in there. But so far, it's pretty good. The next step after the landscaping will be double checking some of the redstone inside that does not appear to work the way that I want it to. The filters don't seem to shut off when they're full. and I need them to do that, because if someone decides to really stock up on moss or really stock up on bone meal by running the bone meal section of the farm, I don't want there to be a lot of items floating around on a hopper that should have been stopped from going down and being in there. So I need to figure out why those aren't necessarily stopping the flow. It could be the fact that those items were already in a cobweb by the time the system got shut off, but I don't think that's the case. So there's still some troubleshooting to do on the internal workings of it, and that's going to be a real pain because space is kind of tight when you're trying to figure out like what's going on. But I'm happy with the look of it now compared to what it was last week, which was very, I don't know, I just felt like rusty Joel Minecraft building. Like it didn't feel at all what was in my head coming out of the mouse and materializing in Minecraft. So this feels a lot nicer.
I am actually kind of jealous, even though I've just been playing a bunch of modded Minecraft and there's a ton of extra stuff in that. Like, I've missed some of the stuff that was added in 1.21, like the copper bulbs. Like, I genuinely feel like I haven't, for all of the hype I had for copper bulbs, I haven't spent as much time with them as I want to yet. And so whenever I see them pop up in builds like yours, like, it just makes me happy that people are using them, because I feel like I should have been championing these and I've been away on modded Minecraft in 1.20 where we don't have access to some of that stuff yet. I'm also, by the way, sincerely missing the crafter when I've got a ton of bones and coal coming out of this Wither skeleton farm. That there are a couple of modded things that allow you to craft stuff easily and just put it back into the storage interface, but yeah, I've kind of missed having an auto crafter set up for that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see this project coming along really well, and yeah, the moss roof I think really sets it off. So you can see from the moss collection area, you can see the roof, right? So that it's not just if you happen to be standing in there with the item filters, you can see the roof. Like, there is a little bit of visibility from the player-facing side of this build, yeah?
So the player-facing has its own cave, like it has its own roof and has its own hanging vines already. So I took the idea of putting this moss roof on top of this and decorating the inside of the redstone filters, because the storage area has the same sort of vibe. It has like that overgrown cave vibe. That's been done for a very, very long time. This was just previously not decorated because it was inside of a mountain. And it was only because I ripped down a good chunk of the mountain to show off the new iron farm that I ended up exposing a lot of this redstone. And decided to say, okay, well, if this is going to stick out, then I need to make a project out of it rather than just kind of like leaving it stick out as it was. There was a little bit that had stuck out, but I kind of increased it by like a good 50 or 60%. So there's really only a small portion that's hidden now. But it's, for me, it's one of those things that also helps with the clarity now that it's inside, it's well lit. So when I do go and revisit it to fix the redstone like next week or in a year or two, if I have to go back and fix it, it's going to be a lot easier to see what's going on, where things are going, to know what the circuits are doing, that kind of thing. So I'm happy to have that. I need to replace some of the blocks that redstone is on. Like some of the blocks right now are just stone. So the redstone circuitry is on parts of the cave floor, and I would like to just quickly replace those with like stripped logs or just something player touched, player made that, you know, okay, don't mind that block out if you have to make any adjustments. That's obviously got something on it. And I really like the copper bulbs. They mesh in really well. They've got this warm yellow to them that really works with copper. It really works with moss. It really works with glowberries, especially. So you can have like 1 or 2 copper bulbs and 3 or 4 glowberries around, and it all just seems to kind of sparkle with the same, you know, yellowy orange light. It doesn't feel too out of place, which is really nice. And if you were, you know, doing other builds, of course, the oxidation on the copper bulbs will change the light level and change the color of the block. So if you had more of a prismarine build going on, you could dim those down and have them match the prismarine and have them work with other lights. They're still going to be orange, like the color on the texture is still going to be kind of an orangey yellow. It's not going to work with necessarily your sea lanterns, but I do find them quite flexible in organic builds, and I can see copper bulbs being used in something like an elven fantasy build or something where you've got like natural bioluminescence happening, but then you also have these like manufactured bulbs, and by putting the two next to each other, you can say like, oh, well, maybe that's a glowberry that's been put inside of a lantern. Like you can kind of like create that little imagination connection in your head. They have the same sort of vibe.
Yeah. Like I definitely want to return to copper bulbs a lot more when I get back into Survival Guide and start building this, what I'm thinking of as the Windy City, where I'm going to be working a lot with wind charges and having this kind of steampunk aesthetic. I think it's going to be something to look into for sure.
Well, moving into the news, we've got a new snapshot to talk about this week. Minecraft Java Edition Snapshot 24W38A was published on September 18th. Quote, this snapshot brings you dyeable bundles in the bundles experiment and fully featured world creation for realms, including hardcore mode. Experimental features in 24W38A. The bundle can now be dyed 16 different colors using dyes. Changes in 24W38A. Shulkerbox coloring recipes are now shown in the recipe book. Updated the world creation screen for realms. Enabled hardcore mode for realms. Throwing items out of your inventory very quickly in creative mode is now throttled. For realm changes, realms now use the normal, fully featured world creation screen. This enables the game rule customization and enables data pack customization. Hardcore mode is now available in realms and is accessible by creating a new world or recreating an existing one. Technical changes in 24W38A. The data pack version is now 54. This introduces the new item tag bundles, which includes all bundle items. Also includes crafting transmute recipe type, which when matched, the recipe output will copy the item stack, changing the item type, but preserving all stack components. Full details of this can be found in the Minecraft.net changelog. The resource pack version is now 39. Bundle models and textures have 16 colored variants. The models and UV mapping related to the torch and blocks containing redstone torch have been updated. A temporary option for ignoring connection errors in the client side, internally called strict error handling, has been removed. Fixed bugs of note in 24W38A. On certain enchanted items, the anvil will display a, quote, too expensive message before attempting to repair, combine, or rename the item. Note that this doesn't remove too expensive message entirely. It just removes cases in which items show up as too expensive before a second item is added to the anvil for repairs. Squids and glow squids bounce up and down in bubble columns, teleporting high up into the air. Squids and glow squids are not affected by the thrust of bubble columns. Teleport without specific parameters can change the entity's rotation. Minecart with furnace does not travel correctly over curves. And shift clicking the destroy items slot in the creative inventory deletes the item's server side, but not client side, causing a desync. These and several other bugs have been fixed. The full list of bugs can be found in the changelog on Minecraft.net, which will be linked in our show notes at thespawnchunks.com.
Also in our show notes, you can find links to a couple of announcements this week from Minecraft.net, including that Minecraft Live is back. To quote the article, Minecraft Live is the show to watch for all things happening in the world of Minecraft, and it's coming on September 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This year's Minecraft Live will have a new look and feel, but it's still packed with the latest and greatest news. We'll be unveiling never-before-seen game drops, giving you exclusive insight into new things coming to the world of Minecraft, and more. It's all coming to you directly from the developers at the Minecraft HQ here in Stockholm. We've also prepared an after show where you'll get to watch our developers go even deeper into the updates and play through new content for the first time ever. There's a trailer on youtube.com/Minecraft entitled Minecraft Live is Coming Soon that has a little bit of extra info along with a pretty hefty bop if you want to bop your head along to the tunes along with all of the on-screen critters. Minecraft for PlayStation 5 also now has a release date. To quote the article, earlier this year we released a preview version of Minecraft for the PlayStation 5. Thanks to your feedback and some eager tinkering, the native PS5 version of Minecraft is launching on October 22nd. Minecraft for PS5 is optimized to take advantage of the console's more powerful hardware. This means your game will have a greater render distance while still being 4K resolution and 60 FPS. If you already have Minecraft for PS4, you'll be able to get the PS5 native version for free. Just access the PlayStation Store via your PS5, ensuring that you're logged in, and claim your digital copy. If you don't own any version of Minecraft for PlayStation, you can purchase a copy via the PlayStation Store or your local games retailers. Once again, we'll have links to all of those in our show notes. You can also find them over at Minecraft.net.
So we're going to be talking a little bit more about Minecraft Live in our main discussion because, of course, we're going to be covering that as it happens this Saturday on the 28th. But for now, I think the big news of the week is going to be dyeable bundles.
Finally, I'm so happy, Joel. Like, honestly, dyeable bundles are something I've wanted since the bundle's original announcement. I think it's so crucial for any kind of storage in this game to have a means of customizing its appearance to make sure that you know what is going where. And bundles, while obviously they have a useful UI that you can mouse over or hover over or tap on to see what the contents are, obviously, since they've made some changes to what is visible of the contents, I think it's been even more crucial that there was some sort of customization. But since you can carry them around and they're sort of storage internal to your inventory, it makes as much sense as being able to dye shulker boxes. Chests, obviously, we could have multiple varieties of chests, but the fact that you can place them in the world, attach item frames to them or label them by whatever means you feel necessary, it's sort of less necessary to color code those. But I think with bundles being something you're carrying around constantly, it just makes so much sense to be able to dye them. They're made of leather, which is already a dyeable material in many of its other products, so I think it makes so much sense that we've got dyeable bundles at long last.
I think they look good. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure it was in development a long time before we mentioned it on the show,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that we definitely had mentioned it as something that should be part of it. I can see people using the bundles now for just the first like 8 to 12 slots, like not
Yeah.
even going beyond that, and then that way you know exactly what's in it. You can grab another one, dye it a different color, very quickly now know where 20 different kinds of 20 or 24 different kinds of items are. I think that's something, as you mentioned, food, tools, profession blocks, maps, ender pearls, all the different examples we've seen from either our discussions or people writing in and saying how they're going to be using bundles. I think it could be fun for RP as well. Like
Yeah.
if you want to decorate it in an item frame, you've got a shop and you want to put something up on an SMP and you want to put like a pink bundle above your flower shop or just, something that humorous and whatever, that could be kind of cool. And then for us on the Citadel, we have the Shulker Plus mod, which allows you to attach an item to the top of a Shulker box to help identify it. And now we have another 16 items that are different colors that we could use to identify what might be in a Shulker box. And in some cases, that's difficult because I end up with like several Shulker boxes that are all the same color because I only have 16 different colors of Shulker boxes to work with. But now I could have like a gray shulker box with a brown bundle on top, with a green bundle on top, like depending on what was in there. Like say you had a different shulker box for mossy stone versus regular stone. And yes, you can put the stone blocks and stuff on top of the shulker boxes, but they stick out really far. And so I prefer to use items. And so the bundle item is a rendered flat pixel item as opposed to like a 3D rendered object.
Yeah.
And so it'll look a little bit better in that case. That's a very specific use case, but like because I'm endgame, bundles are probably not going to be something I'm using a lot of, depending on what my tasks are. I can see myself using them for decoration. And around Westel, I think it'd be really cool. Like you have like a nice red bundle above a shop that sells something, spices or whatever. Like I feel like that could be kind of cool to see like used in like a shelf or a sign inside the shop or like a bunch of different things like that. I think could be really kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be really fun for personalization, for gifting items to your server mates, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, honestly, the way I'm going to work out using them is color coordinating them inside shulker boxes and being able to bundle the odds and ends that, like, the 5 or 6 walls and fences that go along with a certain type of material. So if you've got a full shulker box of cobblestone, but then you've crafted a few stairs, slabs, walls, or whatever out of it, and you've got a couple left over, those just go in a bundle in one corner, and it saves them taking up 3 spaces of your shulker box that could be full stacks of cobblestone again. That's sort of how I expect to use them in tandem with stuff that already makes storage in Minecraft so much easier. I think I can see myself using one for workstations even into late game. Even on the fantasy SMP, I've adopted using a bundle for a stone cutter, a crafting table, an ender chest, any of the stuff that's kind of stackable workstations that can easily go in one place, but the stuff that I might need on the go and don't want to just leave, 7 crafting tables everywhere I end up. I think in early game, I can imagine having a couple for exploration to get like when you're starting a world and you only have like 5 or 6 different types of food and you don't have access to like your permanent food supply yet, whether that's breeding cows for steak or a chicken cooker or golden carrots. I think at that stage you're going to have whatever you can grab, mutton from the sheep and pork chops and steak and, chicken and whatever else. And all of that going in the same bundle, color-coded, so the pink one has all of the raw meat in that you need to cook or whatever, then I think that's really useful to players. And having one that's maybe reserved for the odds and ends of mining that you can't condense into full blocks, having used that in a pretty successful experiment with the newer bundles that have the 12-slot UI, I think, yeah, I can imagine myself carrying around 3 or 4 of these, and having the means to dye them means at a glance I know which is which, and I'm not fumbling through each one to try and figure out where I left a certain item. Like, if you're organized about it, as with everything in Minecraft, you're going to have a much easier time.
Yeah, I think that being organized in that way really does help early gameplay. Like, again, it's been a while since I've done the early game Minecraft, but like when inventory becomes a crunch, like anything at all to really space that kind of stuff out and allow you to pick up more things as you see them, because sometimes you just need one. Like, you need one sugarcane to go home and start a sugarcane farm. You need one potato or beet or carrot. I was experiencing this in the Satisfactory over the week, and playing an early playthrough, and I had not yet expanded my inventory to like the full end game capacity that you can get to. And one of the things that they have in the game now is called dimensional storage. And one of the early game implementations of dimensional storage is like when you pick up that one odd thing when you're out exploring that you don't want to carry around with you, you can use it to you can upload it to the dimensional storage, which is like having an ender chest sort of idea in Minecraft. And being able to do that kind of with bundles, they're still with you, they're not going anywhere, but it's like it's giving that one inventory slot the ability to have 12 different things in it, which is really cool.
Yeah, and you don't have access to ender chests until you've killed an enderman and gone and fought a blaze as well, plus, mining obsidian and everything else. So the fact that they're now available with just one leather and one string makes bundles a really good choice. Like, I think it's nice to have them in the game. Hopefully we'll see more people adopting them and figuring out what they're actually for once they arrive in a full-fledged update. But who knows, now that game drops are a thing, we might be seeing that sooner rather than later.
Moving on into email, if you'd like to email the show, the Spawn Chunks email address is spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. Please keep your emails short and to the point. It does help us include them in the show. And if you want to put a subject line in there, it also helps us file it in terms of what the subject might be, what show episode we might want to talk about it on, that kind of thing. And Johnny is going to read the first one.
Yes, this one comes in from Dutchy ESP with the subject of traditional and adaptation. Hi, Johnny and Joel. I've been a huge fan for the podcast for a while now, but this is my first time writing in. There are many funny and or annoying recipes in Minecraft. For example, 1 whole block of wood for a button, or 2 whole blocks of wood for a pressure plate. Despite community chatter, those sort of traditions don't change. However, we have seen changes to animal animation recently, which is a change from tradition. Where do you think Mojang draws the line on needing to be adaptable for the community compared to their want to stick to long-standing gameplay in Minecraft? What side do you two prefer? Personally, my nostalgia takes over and I will always prefer tradition. Thanks for the amazing podcast. Dutchy ESP died due to her incapability of adaptation.
While I am a fan of some of the things that Minecraft has as far as tradition, I'm all for moving forward. Where Minecraft is now a 15-year-old game, I feel like sticking to old recipes or old ways of doing things just for nostalgia's sake, when there is adequate player feedback to say, this is something that we don't enjoy about the game, I think that that's a misstep. However, I think there can also be a Minecrafty way to move things forward and give players other options. And for players like Dutchy, keep the original recipe or keep the original thing in the game, but then provide another way for players to do things. I think having more than one way to craft an object or to find an object or to farm an object does a number of things. It creates opportunities for players to choose the way they want to play the game, which most people like. But then it also provides gameplay. If you have played Minecraft one way and you did a cow farm one way, and then you realize, oh, I could do it a different way, then you're not repeating the same tasks over and over again. You can just try a different way of playing the game, which is really, really cool. And if they can keep it into something that adheres to the spirit of Minecraft, then all the better. I think it's also a question of developer priority. Are recipes the things that we really want developers mulling over and tweaking over time, or do we want a new mob or new biome, new block? I think a lot of players would prefer new things coming to the game. But I think that's where it ties in. Like if you add a new item to the game and then you want to, as we've mentioned on the show before, bring the use of an older item forward by having it now be combined with the new item to make something new or create a new task or whatever it is that you want to do, a new farm, then I think that helps update items and give an opportunity to maybe revisit things like recipes that people don't like or things that are difficult. A really good example of this is the crafter and people that want to craft a lot of dispensers, stating it is a pain to craft a lot of dispensers because of the way that everything stacks. But with a crafter, you can get a lot more done quickly. And rather than just changing the recipe or changing the way the old recipe works, Minecraft added new gameplay, new puzzles to figure out, new ways of doing things. You don't have to do it that way. You can still craft, a dispenser the old way, especially if you only need one. It's way easier to just do it that way. But if you need lots, then the crafter is definitely the way to go. And I think that that's a really good example of like moving forward without erasing the past, like kind of tying the two together.
I mean, they've even now implemented the shortcut where you can hit the spacebar to repeat the previous crafting recipe in a crafting table.
Mm-hmm.
So alongside the crafter now being something you can use to make dispensers, you also have an easier way for players to manually craft dispensers. So I think there's like parallel development going on for quality of life in both areas, both in Redstone and in sort of traditional manual crafting. I think the most important thing for developers really is consistency. Like, if something is going to feel like a departure from the way we do crafting recipes right now, then it's got to justify that, or the other crafting recipes have to be modified to match that. And I don't see the reasoning behind it for the most part. I think we are now even reaching a point where Minecraft sort of rubs up against some of the crafting recipes that have been set previously, and that might be a reason not to implement a feature in exactly the same way. I thought about copper buttons as an example for them adding new buttons and maybe changing the button recipe significantly, because if you're trying to make a copper button using a single copper block, right now if you put that in the crafting interface, it breaks back down into 9 copper ingots if you're still dealing with fresh copper. And so the only way you could make copper buttons would be with the oxidized versions of the block. But if they wanted to make it out of a single copper ingot, that wouldn't necessarily make sense with some of the other crafting recipes, both in terms of the economy of copper and also the economy of like planks and stone and other blocks that you use to make buttons. So they would have to implement a different copper button recipe one way or the other if they wanted to implement them, along with the copper golem, which I think is where the concept of copper buttons was first introduced. So if anything, we dodged a bullet by not voting the copper golem in during that mob vote, was because then we'd have to have this discussion, probably similar to the discussion we had about copper trapdoors for so long. But I'm kind of curious how they get around stuff like that, and I'm fairly certain it's not by then going back and retroactively changing the button recipes for all of the wood and stone types that already make buttons. I'd be curious if they decide on a third option, implement a completely different item and have it be made using different combinations of copper blocks or copper items or whatever. Even like an ingot and a block is what makes a copper button, for example. But that would feel kind of strange. That's how Minecraft evolves as a format, though. That's how new recipes get introduced, and the developers are challenged to come up with things that feel intuitive to gameplay, as some of those old crafting recipes did. You know, it's fairly obvious how to make a pickaxe because you draw the shape of a pickaxe using the materials you get. How do some of the more complex and arcane recipes suggest themselves? Well, now we have the recipe book. So now you can sort of just look it up in-game instead of having to go to a wiki to understand how a piston or a redstone comparator or something is made. But there's still that gap to close between intuitive gameplay and players understanding innately of how to craft something versus the known recipes that already pre-exist in the community and the resources we now have to look those up.
When it comes to recipes and the examples given to buttons, pressure plates, for example, for Java players anyway, there are data packs that can very easily make recipe adjustments. We've got a couple on the Citadel that allowed the stonecutter to make most, if not all, wood recipes. And with some adjustments to output, you get more trapdoors, I think, per log doing it that way than just the vanilla style. And that was just to accommodate busy adults that were using a lot of trapdoors and didn't want to lose all of their wood to trapdoors all the time. I think we're less likely to see something from the vanilla game on that front in terms of recipe changes, because again, like there are those tools out there for players. Now it's for Java players. I don't know what you can do about Bedrock and whatnot, but I think that those kind of adjustments are. I'd rather see a new item. With your example of copper, I'd rather see like a copper switch where you have to have like a copper ingot and a lever and combine that, and then you get a copper switch. Maybe it works just like a lever, but it looks different, or it has a different, maybe because it does a different output. Maybe it like you could tie it to different things. I don't know. There's a bunch of different things I could think of that could be fun in that way. But then like, how do you, if that's how you want to do it, then you have to wait for that to oxidize. You can't make it with other oxidized bits. So like maybe use a block. If you use a block, then there could be more colors for switches. But then again, you run into the inventory problem of like whenever, just like wood, like whenever you add a wood item, you add all the different items that come with wood. And with copper, you also have to think about like, well, do we want this to have, oxidation? Now, not everything does. I mean, copper lightning rods don't oxidize as far as I know. So, I mean, a copper switch could also be just like, no, it's a component. It's a redstone component. We don't want it to change, especially if it oxidized and changed its output based on oxidation, and someone forgot to wax their switch in their redstone contraption. Like that would be like trying to root out why your redstone contraption isn't working when your switch is oxidized a stage. Like that would be a real pain in the butt. So I don't know. I think that, we'll probably see changes to things that go forward and recipe combination changes, but not necessarily recipe, like base recipe changes. I don't think will change all that much. And then when it comes to things like mobs and other things in the game that are legacy, especially something as iconic as the creeper, like I don't see that changing much at all. New animations is fine, but that doesn't change the gameplay. And I'm fine with that. Like, I mean, if you want to update the way that things move, the way that things look, some textures might need updates here and there, but like, I feel like doing that is more of a just keeping Minecraft up to date and looking modern and looking good, rather than revisiting and changing any nostalgia. I think that those are just pretty safe ways to move the game forward without really rocking the boat, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think the changes to animal animation that Dutchie is talking about, the only example I can think of is the bat, because that was a change in model and a slightly slower wing flap animation, but it wasn't necessarily like a huge change. Minecraft's animation style applying to new mobs has maybe changed a little bit, but they're still trying to stick within some fairly firm guidelines on how much bits of different animals can rotate, and the frogs walk and the sniffers walk have certain characteristics to them, but they still feel like they fit Minecraft's style guide. I think those mobs are just really well designed and have really interesting textures, especially in the case of the sniffer. So I think maybe there's some character given to those which doesn't quite feel like it fits retroactively onto Minecraft's existing set of mobs, but I don't see why they don't really fit in the same style. I think honestly where Mojang draws the line is just listening to the community, which is something that they've been very clear that they plan on doing going forward. In the update post we mentioned on last week's show, they said one of the things we're most looking forward to is the level of interaction with the community that brought us the changes to the armadillo and wolf armor that the community wanted. And, the level of customization for wolf armor and the amount of damage reduction that it did and the way the armadillo looks and behaves, all being part of that community feedback process once Mojang generates the initial idea. I think that's just the way the developer-community relationship works now. And you'll get people from the community, like Dutchie, who want things to stay more or less the same, versus the people who want wild and almost unchecked progress from Mojang. And they have to find a happy medium between those two. It's a community with a lot of different opinions out there. So I think the most important thing is just for them to keep communication open, and hopefully we'll land somewhere that everybody can enjoy.
Next email comes in from Trademark Toby, future major dot updates, and this is going to tie into our main discussion as well. Hi, Johnny and Joel. After listening to episode 315 of the podcast, I'm looking forward to seeing how Mojang will release new updates, especially with Minecraft Live just around the corner. One question I've been thinking about ever since listening to last week's episode is what would warrant a major dot update? For example, version 1.22 or 1.23. Perhaps a new biome or a new structure or something else. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for making such a great podcast. Trademark Toby died of old age, waiting for 1.22 to arrive.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen unless you are already quite aged. But thank you for the email, Toby. And yeah, we wanted to look ahead to Minecraft Live specifically with this week's discussion. There's no mob vote this year, as we've been told. There's no mob vote for the foreseeable future, as far as we are aware. And game development has been taking the direction of smaller, more frequent game drops, alongside larger, less frequent thematic updates. So we wanted to talk about what we can expect to see at Minecraft Live this year, and also keeping in mind the article that we mentioned in the news already stated a couple of the things that was expected to be at Minecraft Live. Never before seen game drops, exclusive insight into new things coming to the world of Minecraft, and even an after show where developers are going to play through new content for the first time ever. So there is potential for a bunch of stuff that we haven't heard of to be announced at this Minecraft Live. It's not just going to be, oh hey, we've been working on bundles and bundles are coming to this version. Like, I think there's going to be a little bit that we can speculate about them potentially announcing. But I think let's start off by addressing the email. Let's talk about the major dot updates, because I don't know if they're necessarily going to release information about them at Minecraft Live. Like, it would be a bit of a swing to say we're working towards an end update, but not necessarily revealing any features from it, just saying, you know, the next major update is in the works right now. We're going to be focusing on the end, or we're going to be focusing on what's beyond the portal in the deep dark and stuff like that. But then that, I feel like, is something like a dimensional overhaul or a structure as big as ancient cities, or like a new biome as expansive as the deep dark and as crucial to the overworld as the deep dark has become. I think that's the kind of stuff that merits a major update. Like updates that change the world significantly, updates that change maybe gameplay progression significantly, updates that have some kind of dimensional overhaul, like is potentially required for the end dimension, or is at least demanded by the community for the end dimension. I think that's the sort of stuff that merits major version updates from now on. And I think everything else, the game drops, the Armored Paws drop, and the update that included decorated pots being the two examples we have, I think those are the minor dot releases that lead to new gameplay features trickling in slowly for existing updates. Does that sort of make sense to you, Joel?
It makes sense from a theme, for sure. Like, I think that those are the things that a lot of marketing material could be invested in and structured around. Again, to use the end update as an example, should it ever come, those are things that you can see, like a splash screen update to the Minecraft launcher, lots of new stuff on social media, YouTube video, a trailer, an animated trailer thing. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that you could see happening for those kinds of things, because it markets to Minecraft's audience as a whole. Everybody from the 5-year-olds all the way up to the 55-year-olds, right? Whereas if you're just doing the smaller content drops, I still think we'll see little bits of social media fun for that kind of stuff, you know, like when bundles finally arrive, or you know, Armadillo and Wolf Armor, like that kind of stuff. I think you'll still see those little animations that you see on Instagram or on YouTube, but it's not going to be a big presentation. It's not going to be necessarily something that's going to warrant a dot release. I do think, though, that sometimes it could be just the volume of content. So like if they're releasing an awful lot of stuff and it's not necessarily like as big as a biome update, for example, if they released a lot of changes to Redstone, or if they released a lot of changes to, well, let's just go back to the other email. Like if they decided to update all of the animations for all of the characters, not really changing any textures so much, but like we're not adding new mobs. We're just making cows and chickens and sheep and everything else move like the sniffer, like have more weight and be a little bit more, you know, 2024 in terms of the animation. I could see them putting that into a major release just to kind of showcase the visual update, like something that would be appealing across all players. Whereas I feel like the drops will be exciting for some players and maybe not always the same players. So when the minecart update finally drops, there's going to be a number of people that will be excited for that. not nearly as the same amount of people are going to be excited for bundles or
Hmm.
for something previously, to use Wolf Armor as an example. Like, I think it's cool, but Wolf Armor is not really high on my priority list.
Yeah.
I don't dislike the update, but it doesn't really affect what I do in the game, so I wasn't paying as much attention to it. And I think that you're going to see that ebb and flow in the game drop updates, where you're going to see more frequent stuff, and it's not always going to appeal to the entire Minecraft player base. They're going to be a little bit more specific. I think over the course of a quarter or half a year, they're probably going to try to hit like a smorgasbord of people. Like, they're going to try to do a kind of drop that will affect most of their player base at some point over the course of that time frame. But I don't see every single drop effect being as big a deal or as appealing across the Minecraft player base as something like a themed release. I think is like something that most people could get behind. There will be something in themed releases and major updates for just about everybody. Even if it's not the whole update, there will be something that you're just like, ooh, the crafter, or ooh, copper bulbs. Like, those kind of things will stick out.
Yeah. I mean, if you take an update like the Nether update as an example, right? You can't imagine them adding the biomes one by one in minor updates, because stuff like that would require players to reset their Nether environment to fully take advantage of the fact that another new biome is generating there. And I think they can maybe add individual biomes to places like the overworld in minor updates, or overhauls like the ones that we saw at previous biome votes for the savannah, the badlands, and the desert, because those just involve going out a little bit further or revisiting an environment and finding that there are new mobs spawning there. Like, you can still find armadillos spawning in pre-existing savannah biomes. It's just more likely that the passive mob cap was already full there from sheep and horses and that kind of thing, right? So I think there is definitely a line to be walked there when it comes to updating stuff. But I think the smaller game drops, for me, present a really useful way of them bringing back runners-up, recycled ideas, and internally, I'm sure the team has plenty of ideas which have been rejected from previous updates because they didn't suit the theme of something like the Nether update or Caves and Cliffs or, anything like that. I think stuff like the Copper Golem and Tough Golem could easily arrive as their own drop, and the community would love stuff like that. But they're not trying to build an entire themed update around those. And I think one of the reasons that they weren't included in Trails and Tales or in the Tricky Trials update is because of there being a push towards this style of gameplay development, where they can add little bits and pieces here and there just based on community demand and not based on whether or not it fits. Like, the Copper Golem and Tough Golem would have fit perfectly into a structure that uses almost exclusively copper and tough in its construction, but they said, no, we're not going to do that. It adds too much scope to the update, and, players had previously not voted for those things as the next thing they wanted added to the game. So I think if there's enough groundswell of support for certain ideas, then maybe we can see stuff like that coming up in some of these minor improvements and updates. But I think one of the other things they're going to use these dot releases for, the game drops, are going to be extending existing features. If you look at the way the decorated pots functionality got added, decorated pots were already in the game. It was the functionality of adding items to them that was implemented in the gameplay drop. Likewise, even though the armadillo was a new addition and was something that had been voted for in the mob vote, wolf armor and the improvement to wolves as a result was something that effectively augments a pre-existing Minecraft feature. And so I can imagine a lot of the gameplay drops are actually going to be improvements to existing features and refinements of stuff that we got in major releases once they realize that community sentiment around something is like, oh, this looks really cool, but we really wish it did this. I think adding functionality to stuff that felt like it wasn't living up to its potential, I think is going to be a great reason for gameplay drops. Who knows, the fletching table could even get something like this in the fullness of time, but there's definitely scope for those to be augmentations of existing systems. You look at recent systems like archaeology, even the sniffer digging up plants and stuff. I think those are great ways to unearth new small features. You get additional items for crafting or decoration out of systems like that without them having to wait for the next major thematic update to arrive before that stuff gets added.
Yeah, I can see, especially the iteration of adding something in a themed release or even just a dot release to then be revisited later, especially with the feedback that they mentioned that they want to use in the article from a couple of weeks ago, and improving things based on player feedback. I think that when it comes to like new things being added in the game drops, I would imagine there will be a lot of tie-ins to existing stuff. So going back to what we were talking about with the recipe stuff, I think it will just be bringing stuff forward to make objects for things in Minecraft that might be old news or they feel underused could then be brought forward by making them part of whatever the new feature is that's coming with a game drop. What I'm curious about the game drops is how frequent they're going to be, and I don't know whether we're going to get a glimpse of that at a Minecraft Live, like whether they're going to know, hey, here's a roadmap for what may be coming for game drops over the next month or 2 or 6 months until the next Minecraft Live. I don't know if we're going to get dates, specifically. I think it'll be more like, these are the kind of things that we're working on. And I feel like they may only announce the ones that they know are coming, even if they don't know when. They'll be like, hey, we've got this update, coming in a game drop. We're looking at updating this. An example might be like the minecart stuff they've been kind of shopping around in the snapshots as experimental features. And it's like, yeah, we're planning on getting that finished and out in the next few months. And then that's cool because then it's coming. And as they release those experimental feature updates that we talked about in the show on snapshots, then players can send in their feedback. And eventually they'll hone it down into something, as we've watched bundles be honed down into something that looks like it's getting closer and closer to becoming part of the game. And I'd like to see some, I guess, forethought on that at Minecraft Live. Like, I'd like to just not know that game drops are coming, but instead, like, at least announce a little bit and so we can see what's coming, and know to look out for it when it does. Because otherwise, I think that one challenge they might face is to get most of the player base on board for monitoring when these game drops are coming, rather than just logging into Minecraft one day and going like, oh, there's a new version. Like, what's happening in this version and where do I go? Because while we can parse the change logs pretty easily, and a lot of adult players can, like, I feel like there's a broader younger player base that needs to be informed when these dot updates are coming. The gameplay drops. When the gameplay drops are coming, like, you need to let people know. And that's where I think that social media tie-in is going to be. Like, they'll have a YouTube video and an Instagram video and let people know that these things are actually in the game. Because otherwise I don't know that the game drops would warrant enough attention to get the attention of all of the player base at once to be like, ooh, there's a new thing coming this week to Minecraft.
Yeah, so we were brainstorming ideas for what we'd want to see at Minecraft Live this year, and I think something that you and I both agree on is if they're changing the development cadence and having these more frequent updates, it would be really nice to see a roadmap. And that's not necessarily a roadmap that announces what all the features are ahead of time, but more like, okay, we have this update planned for this date, and maybe go into some of the features that they're going to be like road testing and unveiling for the first time, but then say, and then 6 months after that, or 8 months after that, or whatever, this is when the next gameplay drop is going to happen. And then after that, 12 months on from the previous themed update, we get another themed update, or 16, 18 months, whatever it needs to be for a larger themed update to take shape while all of these minor developments are going on. I think that should hopefully allay any of the community's concerns about like the frequency of updates and whether or not major releases are even part of the schedule. It doesn't even necessarily need to be like a huge announcement of what the next thematic update is. But I think even though previously they've had the attitude of development happens at the pace it happens, when features are done, they're done. We don't want to pre-announce dates for stuff happening because we want to make sure we have enough time to refine stuff and get it right. They've been pretty good at working to a schedule these last few years. We talked about when the announcement of 1.21 happened, when that update was going to arrive, and we weren't sure, and they don't announce the official update release date until like a couple of weeks ahead of time, but then it's been pretty consistently like a June or July release for the last few years. So it's clear that the team is capable of working to a schedule, even if a couple of refinements and stuff need to be made in minor releases after that. I think when they want to get a thematic update out on time, they can do it. So I think it should be fairly safe for them with their current development cadence to announce when things are happening in the calendar and give players something to look forward to, while not creating too much expectation around what that update is, like we saw with the Wild update, and creating disappointment as a result.
Yeah, I think they're going to be able to parse it out nicely. And I'm curious because of the higher frequency of Minecraft Live, which we know is happening twice a year now.
Twice per year, yeah.
And they're the kinds of announcements that they've said they're going to be making, I'm wondering if they're going to have a more concise format. I can't see them being able to fluff around a lot with a lot of extra exposition or skits or things like that. The kind of thing that you'd see around the mob vote, where it would really be a very small amount of information that would take 5 minutes in every segment to get to. And I'm wondering if it'll be a little bit more concise in that way. Not that we're going to get like dates and answers to everything, but they'll just have so much to cover in with all the game drops that they might want to do, that we might end up being just like a little bit more focused as a developer announcement rather than a big markety presentation, because for that they'd have to have the next theme update ready to showcase. So we may have a slightly longer Minecraft Live closer to a new release, or when they know there's a new release, or if there's a trailer for a new release. And then the other Minecraft Live might be a little bit shorter, and I'm okay with that too. I mean, I think that it's great for us in terms of a podcast that covers this game, because more news coming quicker, I think is good. I think more hands-on stuff and snapshots that gets released faster is better for player feedback, and it gets the community going, including ours. And I think that that's all going to be great. And then as far as, two people that cover these things live, the last year was pretty short, if I remember. I don't think it was much more than an hour, if I recall.
Yeah, I went to the Minecraft YouTube channel to check, and the main live show was 50 minutes long. So,
right.
I think they could keep it. They could keep it down to like 45 minutes and still cram in a lot of useful information in there.
Totally, no, I agree, and I think that I'm happy to see the days gone of like a 2-hour, a presentation that you and I are sitting for 3 hours to cover.
Yeah.
And a lot of that time waiting for something that we can actually dig into and talk about and expand upon, because it was just so broad that it was hard to really kind of get some focused information out of it. And I think that they're just, while I understand that Minecraft has like a broad player base in terms of ages, I feel like they can skew Minecraft Live to be a little bit more focused on, I'll say, the adult players or older players that are at an age where they can watch a developer conference and get excited about it without it having to be kiddie or full of skits and jokes and stuff like that. I do think we are still going to get the lovely excitement and enthusiasm from the developers, because they love Minecraft so much. And to sit and watch, Agnes or Ulraf or any of the other developers that we know sit and talk about something that they've been working on for months and finally announce it is great. And I don't want them to change that. I think that level of enthusiasm around Minecraft is also going to be there. And I think that I like that transparency of presentation in Mojang. So I'm looking forward to more of that in Minecraft Live.
Yeah, agreed. I would really like to see more of the developers just being able to sit down and talk about what they're doing and what they're excited for, and that seems to be the case both for the main show and this developer after show that they've mentioned, which I'm not certain exactly how the format of that is going to be, if it's going to be something that you stick around on the same feed or if it happens elsewhere. So stay tuned on whether or not we'll actually be covering that live when we do our coverage of Minecraft Live. But it could be that they split that sort of 75-25, so like it doesn't have to take up a full hour for the main Minecraft Live presentation, so they can do 15 minutes of like developer fun afterwards and actually seeing them using the features that they've kind of prototyped and have got working for upcoming updates. I think a couple of things that have clued me into the fact that this isn't as big of a presentation as it's been in previous years. I think the sustainability of making it twice annually has probably led to them scaling down the production of it somewhat anyway, because for previous Minecraft Lives they had like big sets that were built and stuff that was thematic and all of these extra animations and segments and stuff that took up a bunch of time, and maybe whether it was due to community feedback that they felt that this was sort of unnecessary fluff, or the studio wanting to focus up on the stuff that really mattered in the presentation, I can see them scaling that stuff down a little bit. I think the trailer for this year's Minecraft Live has been scaled down immensely from the type of animations that they'd done previously. Like, it's a bunch of animals bopping their heads on a single set. You know, it feels less ambitious from an animation standpoint than some of the other stuff they've done for Minecraft Live is coming, and here's all of the extra stuff. There are no mob vote animations to worry about this year, so unfortunately we don't get Tiny Jens and Tiny Agnes, which was the funnest part of the whole mob vote situation. But like, yeah, they don't get to do the pixel art announcements anymore. And the other thing that I noticed, and forgive me if I'm wrong about this because I'm not entirely clued up on how the Minecraft Live production side of things went, but they mentioned specifically in the announcement article this year that it was taking place at the Stockholm studio, like it was coming to you from Mojang HQ in Stockholm. And I think some of the previous lives, if not all of them, were broadcast from the United States, where the Microsoft office is in Seattle. I know that used to be the case when they had them in a theater before COVID and everything had to go like online only. But I have a feeling that maybe the productions were bigger because they had like more space in order to do that. And I think maybe doing them from the Mojang HQ grounds them in the center of Minecraft's development. You know, that's where all of the ideas are generated, as far as I'm aware. Bedrock team is still part of the Microsoft crowd, I think, over in the States, but I think a lot of the ideas and a lot of the personnel involved in Mojang and Minecraft team are central to Stockholm. So maybe that feels like it's grounding it a bit more in the reality of what Minecraft is versus these sort of fanciful ideas and animated shorts that they want to throw in there to generate hype about the world of Minecraft and not the game of Minecraft.
And I could even see them doing it more like those developer diaries that we saw for Minecraft Dungeons as that was coming out and the new expansions were happening, and some behind the scenes about the music, and just kind of sitting down in the studio if they've got a pretty space, you know, if you want to have a video shot and an interview. Like, I remember when Agnes did that video about the 1.18 update and kind of sat down somewhere, it looked like in the studio somewhere, like one of the casual, you know, recreation areas in the offices, and just kind of shot a very nice video there. Like, I could see that being a very simple approach, and I wouldn't mind seeing some of that behind the scenes, like, you know, seeing the sound stage or whatever. We had that video recently about Minecraft sounds being recorded and sound engineering and stuff like that, and I'd love to see that kind of thing showcased at Minecraft Live as well. One thing that I think we will see this Saturday is a full trailer for a Minecraft movie. And,
okay.
I think that they'll probably make a big deal of announcing, like, this is the release of the trailer. And I would not be surprised if there's a lot of exposition and explanation as to what the story might be, as to whether people have seen bits of it or how excited they are for it. I anticipate there being a lot of PR kind of housekeeping around the broader, we'll say, poor reception of the teaser trailer so far by the Minecraft community as a whole. We had a pretty balanced discussion about it, but I've not seen a lot of really positive stuff out there. And so I imagine there will be, I don't necessarily want to call it damage control, because I think that's extending a little bit too far, because there really hasn't been a full story trailer to know what we might even expect. But I think that there will be a fair amount of attention given to, here's the new trailer, you should really watch this one. It'll give you a better idea as to what's going on, because somewhere there's someone that knows just how poorly the teaser trailer was received, and I feel like they probably want to address that.
Yeah, I can imagine there being... I don't know if we'll necessarily see a full trailer this soon after a teaser trailer, but who knows? Like, it could be that something that they were saving up for a big Minecraft presentation, and like we'll see. I do think I agree with you. If they show anything about the trailer, even if they show the teaser trailer, I expect there'll be a few folks kind of mentioning how much they're looking forward to seeing it and that kind of thing. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that they will want to distance themselves from, at least, even though like the reaction from the community has been a knee-jerk one of like, this feels laughable. Like I do think that maybe they'll find some good stuff to say about it on stage, just to try and reinforce the idea that the people behind this game are interested in how this is going to turn out. Like, it's not just a totally separate thing that's going on. Either way, we will see you folks for Minecraft Live, because once again, it is happening this Saturday, and the Spawn Chunks will be there co-streaming. That'll be over on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/pixelriffs. So if you want to hop on over there and drop a follow, would appreciate it. That's where we've done the previous Minecraft Live streams, and those will be posted as VODs to our YouTube channel after the fact, where you can come back and watch some episodes of the video podcast if this is one of your first times checking it out. In the meantime, though, that's where we'll end this episode of The Spawn Chunks. You can find more information about the show and links to some of the stuff that we've talked about today over at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can visit patreon.com/thespawnchunks to join our community. Pledging at any level gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat. You can listen to the show live when we record it in Discord every week, and we also have our monthly Minecraft Hangouts, one of which is happening right before Minecraft Live, so we'll also, I'm sure, be getting a little bit of hype about Minecraft Live before we do the live show. Once again, as we did at the top of the show, we'll remind you that the iOS app for Patreon is not going to be able to support shows like ours for a couple of months while we make a few behind-the-scenes changes. So once again, we'll encourage you to visit the web version of Patreon at patreon.com/thespawnchunks if you want to support the show. And we currently have 309 patrons, which is down 2 from last week, so there is always room for more. Special thanks go out to our content engineer patrons, Gundar H. Striker, Hunter555, Jumbo Sale, Mindtrip Media, Party Voyager, and Yitz. Thank you all for your support on this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's free. Just poke a friend in the arm and say, hey, you should listen to The Spawn Chunks. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on social media. New episodes are available on Mondays on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. And a little bit later in the day, you'll see the video version pop up on YouTube. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. The RSS feed is available on the Spawn Chunks website, and the patron-only RSS feed, that's where you can get the render distance. The extended version of the program is available again at patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixelriffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/Pixelriffs, where the Minecraft Survival Guide has been on a bit of a hiatus, but the third season will continue once I'm back to that in October. I also stream 3 days a week on Twitch, where my current pet project is the Fantasy Minecraft Fabric SMP, where I'm building the Necro Mansion, and you can find occasional behind-the-scenes work for my YouTube series going on Twitch as well. I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search, and aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything that I'm doing online can be found at joelduggan.com. That includes a link to the Citadel Cafe, my other podcast about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. I'm planning to go see Transformers 1 this week or next, so expect to have that come up on the Citadel Cafe in the coming weeks. I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/JoelDuggan. Normally I split between Minecraft and other games, but Satisfactory has been controlling my life lately. So you can expect to see a lot of Satisfactory over the next week, especially throughout the month of September, because it is launch month for that game. But I do make sure that I hit Minecraft at least a couple times a week to make sure that we have something to talk about on this show. So you'll see both over at Joel Duggan on Twitch.
Thanks for visiting The Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, but change is inevitable.